Hey guys, how we doing? Welcome to the latest episode of For Checking TV. I'm your host, Doug Glacky, and alongside me is my co-host, Scotty Porterfield. And tonight we are joined by a special guest, Logan Hartnett, avid Pens fan, Johnstown guy, and the official slash unofficial golf pro for the Florida Everblades of the ECHL. Logan, how we doing, buddy?
Hey, I'm doing great. It's good to finally see you again, talk to you, see a familiar face so many miles away, but trying to live it down in Florida as best as I can. You know, things have took a turn for the best, as some would say, but we'll get into all that later. How have you been?
Oh, buddy, I've been fantastic. I moved back home about a year and a half ago. Started working at the hospital, doing some kitchen type stuff, getting back to my roots, and then COVID happened, and we started doing this. And I think it's working out. It's starting to take off a little bit, and I'm really excited about it. So
Absolutely. Seems to be the trend to jump on too, kind of work from home, do your own thing, and produce as much as you want.
yeah, dude, exactly. I mean, obviously, this is a great side hustle for me. I love my main job. I love everything about it. The money's good, and you know, it's just a fun thing to do on the side. I mean, I was a broadcasting major, so this is kind of like just something to keep me like sane a bit in a sense.
Yeah, everyone needs that hobby, especially in the past, year and a half, 2 years now.
Yeah, exactly. So we're gonna get into this here. Big news day, big news couple weeks in the NHL. I want to start off with something that we forgot to touch on last week because we're doing a mock expansion draft that went on for probably like a half hour too long. But anyway, Pierre McGuire hired by the Ottawa Senators. He's in like some player development role, but it seems like he's the heir to the throne in terms of being the next GM of the Ottawa Senators. And in that case, Jesus, take the wheel. Because, I mean, dude, so whenever Pierre was had his introductory press conference, he was like, I had one GM offer about 6 or 7 years ago, and it was a 2-year deal, but I turned it down. I'm just like, good God, they interviewed him before they hired Jim Rutherford. And, just like the Zach Parise, Ryan Suter debacle that almost went down a decade ago, that might be the biggest dodged bullet in Penguins history, because God knows what this team looks like right now with Pierre McGuire making decisions. One thing is for certain, Chris Letang would be playing for the Canadiens.
Yeah, we'd only have 3 cups instead of 5. No doubt in
Yeah.
my mind. So the specific role that he was given, he's the senior vice president of player development, I guess is what the role he was given. And I mean, if you want to just base, for those of you who don't know, Pierre McGuire has worked with NHL teams before. He was a coach at one point, even with the Hartford Whalers. And here are just some excerpts, I guess, from that I saw going around Twitter to basically describe Pierre McGuire, in his short-lived coaching career. In 15 years of covering the NHL, we had never seen a coach so universally disrespected and disliked within his own organization. Another one says, in a blistering postmortem, Captain Pat Verbeek called McGuire's firing the best thing that could have happened to the Whalers. He said other teams mocked their coach. He said his own teammates had no respect for McGuire. He said a number of players wouldn't have wanted to play in Hartford anymore. Playing in Hartford sucked as it was already because you're basically playing in a mall. And then your head coach was Pierre McGuire. Couldn't be very fun. And then the last one, once when he was an assistant coach, McGuire bragged about his strategy to shut down Mario Lemieux. This was after a 7-3 loss and 4 goals by Kevin Stevens. So just to give you an idea of Pierre McGuire's short time behind the bench, was not obviously the greatest. And this is where we stand now. I don't know what motivated Ottawa to think, okay, this is the guy to help right our ship. But for some reason, that's the guy they're going to go with. So we'll see how it plays out for him. I wish him the best of luck because they're going to need it probably.
And it's a shame because that's a team that's like having a nice rebuild. They're really close in a lot of spots, and Pierre McGuire's just going to go in there and just nuke it to hell.
Most likely.
I mean, and then he said he has like the 7-tier system where it's like you have a really good puck moving defenseman, a shutdown defensive defenseman, 2 good centers, and like a power forward winger. And it's like, so like my thing is with the defenseman, it's like we need this one big, really good puck moving defenseman. Then we need like this guy that's good at the other thing. It's like very bizarre to me, like, and we all know that whenever he says big hulking defensive defenseman, he means like he'd trade for Nikita Zaitsev again if he could. Not like doing the right thing and trading for like a Mackenzie Weegar or a Colton Parayko. He'd be trading for like literal garbage. And, I mean, they have a lot of good prospects. They're so close. I mean, they have another top 10 draft pick coming next week in the draft. And it's like, now everything's like in jeopardy because Pierre's there.
Well, I think at some point Ottawa just has to say, what do we have to lose? I mean, we have these young guns right now. We need to shake things up. I don't know if it's a good move. I don't know if it's a bad move, but what does it hurt to try? We're already stuck in a rut. Hopefully not dig yourself deeper, but hopefully venture down different avenues that may open a door here and there.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. And I agree. And the thing with Pierre is if he does become the GM of the Sens, he'll, he might end up like Jim Rutherford, where he's just making trades for the sake of making trades, and he just falls ass backwards into a great roster.
Yeah, it's possible. I just listened to, I just read a few John Cooper quotes. He said, most teams were looking at top 6 forwards, top 2, top 4 D, but we're looking for the exact opposite. And sometimes you just find those diamond in the rough, not by looking at the superstars. And I feel like Pierre knows enough that he's going to be like, this guy could be a good fit for our roster, a good, really depth guy on that 4th line. Someone kind of like a Jeff Carter who moved in last season for us.
Yeah, and that's a big one. Like that's a prime example for me of somebody who just, wasn't on the radar at all. I've told this story before. I don't know if you know this, but I was in the middle of doing a podcast with Nick Berlansky and his co-host Nick Horwat when the Carter trade broke. And I remember I was just sitting there like, 1,000-yard stare. I remember I texted Horwat, like, I think I remember I texted him like something along the lines of like, what the fuck? Like, what is this? I'm like, oh, I hate this, whatever. But turned out great for them. And so much to the point that, if they lose him to the Kraken next week, they're in a bad spot. Mm-hmm. But I think that he's being left exposed simply because he's pulling the Jason Spezza of, if any of you people pick me up, I will retire immediately. So kudos to Jeff Carter for that, if that is the case. But yeah, a couple trades went down. Obviously, the Victor Arvidsson to LA trade we touched on. Last night, Ryan Graves got traded to the New Jersey Devils for a 2nd-round pick and the top prospect. And Logan, Scotty and I were talking about this before we started recording. If that's the asking price for a bottom-pairing, defensive-minded defenseman, it is malpractice if the Penguins do not trade Marcus Pettersson by the midnight roster freeze tonight.
100%.
And I mean, even like you look at the price of the Duncan Keith trade, I know it's not possible because Mike Matheson does not possess the hockey men type intangibles of Duncan Keith. But like, if that's the going rate for Duncan Keith at this point in his career, trade Mike Matheson, clear out this cap space, because you have P.O. Joseph, who's going to be able to step into a 3rd pairing role. You can easily sign like a John Merrill or a Mike Riley type of defenseman in free agency to play with John Marino. And then you're still working with like millions of dollars. at that rate, you know? And
not only, but staying younger too.
exactly.
I mean, you're not talking about a guy like Duncan Keith, who's, how old is he now? I mean, is he in his 40s yet, pushing it?
He's like 38 or 39.
It's the same thing as Landeskog. I read something about him. He's asking an absurd amount of money to get signed. I mean, I don't quite understand where they think the second wind is coming from. That's like saying Gino is going to ask for XYZ, an absurd amount per year. I mean, yes, you have that potential, but is it here anymore? Not really. Matheson, as the road you were going down, agreed. Free up as much cap space as you need, because it's not only defensemen that we may be shopping or buying, but it's other positions such as goaltending, and maybe for somebody to replace Carter if one of the young guys isn't healthy, just somebody on reserves. Free up as much cap space as possible, because I mean, that seemed to be the topic of conversation after that Stanley Cup Game 5. That seemed to be a pretty big red light going off in people's eyes.
And
yeah, and I think go ahead, Scotty.
Logan said just with Landeskog, he's asking price for a salary that pays somewhere in the $9 to $10 million range, but he's willing to give Colorado a discount. This is from Andy Strickland. And apparently the Panthers, Golden Knights, Lightning, Leafs, Islanders, and Blues have interest in him. So that's a steep price for him, and I don't know if he's, really worth that per se, but it's definitely going to be a steep price to ask for a guy.
Could you imagine Toronto adding another $10 million player?
I don't think they're able to do anything, though?
Is it even possible at this point?
I mean, Hyman coming off the books, and then Kerfoot might move the needle.
They're in cap hell at this point, as it is. You don't want to go further down. You don't want to go further down there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. But what I was going to say was, like, we're going into an off season where, especially if they do move on from Jason Zucker in some capacity, where I think they still need to sign 2 top 9 wingers. Freddie Gaudreau did phenomenal playing a third line role with Carter and McCann this spring, but, like, is that really what you want? Like, is that the guy that you want playing in that role? Whenever you're going to have guys like Thomas Tatar lying around, basically at the bottom of the toy bin, like asking for probably like $2.5 million, you have to try and pounce on those guys. In my opinion, you try and get Tatar to play with Malkin. Run Tatar, Malkin, and Kapanen, because Tatar's a really good finisher, and he really likes playing with centers who rag the puck around in the slot, and Malkin does just that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm intrigued right now as to why you're not mentioning Tanev, or mention why we, why it's such a big deal that we potentially do re-sign him or not release him for an expansion. What's your view on him?
My big thing with Brandon Tanev that I don't understand is, okay, so obviously context, Rob Rossi released a protection list that he's been hearing about for the Penguins for Seattle expansion draft this week. And the forwards were Crosby, Malkin, Gensel, Rust, Kapanen, and Bluger and Tanev. And then they protected on defense. They protected Dumoulin, Letang, and Mark Friedman, and they protected Casey DeSmith. Obviously, Jared McCann is missing from that bunch, and he should not be missing from that bunch. He put up amazing numbers this year in a shortened season, and Rob Rossi followed up that tweet with, "My sense from talking to sources is Kraken likely would not select the following Penguins forwards if unprotected." He listed Zucker, Carter, Mike Matheson, Marcus Pettersson, and Tristan Jarry. And those are all either older veteran players or guys on inflated cap hits. I know Brandon Tanev has been worth the money, but he would also classify as one of those inflated cap hits. I don't understand why you're not just exposing Tanev and protecting McCann and making the choice obvious that the Kraken take Zach Aston-Reese when you're literally giving them a potential breakout candidate player in Jared McCann for free.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, it's it's like we said earlier, Dougie. I don't know if it's like maybe Hextall and Burke are kind of just, infatuated with those intangibles that Tanev possesses, because it seems like a lot of GMs seem to think that way. And look, I'll give Brandon Tanev his flowers while I can, because through the first 2 years of his contract, he's lived up to his expectations. He's lived up to the money, I'd say. He's been that guy, that little spark plug the Penguins need every now and then. But I think you have to wonder, which one are you more willing to part ways with? To me, Jared McCann is a guy that I feel like he's right there. Like, he's almost above the hump. Maybe he just needs one little push. I don't know what it is. If he needs more time with Malkin, I don't know if he needs more time on the power play, whatever it may be. I feel like if he got that, maybe he could turn in a 30-goal season. That's the thing that, you don't want to have like a Vegas situation where they take like a Jonathan Marchessault or a William Karlsson. You're like, okay, whatever, you can have those guys. And then they just break out and have, 30, 40-goal seasons. Because I feel like that could potentially happen here. Or worse yet, you try and sway Seattle to take a Zach Aston Reese instead of Jared McCann, and you end up having to give up an elite prospect or a draft pick to go along with it. I think that's another thing you bring into play as well.
Yeah, and just so everybody knows, the current asking price for that type of a side deal with Seattle is apparently a first and a third round draft pick. And it's not worth it when your own management team is incapable of making the proper personnel decision in terms of asset and roster management.
And another thing we need to touch upon too, I think, and I think just based off of seeing how they've treated Tristan Jarry through this whole expansion process, is there any chance he's still on the team by the end of this year?
I don't think he makes the opening night roster.
Because you gotta wonder, like, he's definitely not a start. I don't know if he's a starting goalie anymore, because they clearly prioritize Casey DeSmith over him. So maybe that's up in the air, or at the very least, they're looking at this saying, "Hey, we don't have faith in you anymore," because that's clearly what it seems like. It's like, "Hey, we are doing anything we can to get you off our hand. We're willing to let you go for free, as opposed to trade for another goalie and having to give you up instead." That's how much they want rid of this guy. So I don't know what their game plan is with Jarry right now, but you got to wonder if he's even, like you said, Doug, is he even going to see opening night?
Yeah, and the thing is, I think they protected Casey DeSmith not because of it being like a vouch of confidence into Casey DeSmith. No. He's literally the only goalie in the organization that meets the expansion requirements other than Jarry, because Emil Larmy signed overseas and Alex Diorio is exempt. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. And my big thing is if we're talking goalies, who's the goalie? Who's going to be the guy that they bring in? I mean, I personally like Linus Ullmark from the Sabres. He's going to be a UFA in the summer. He put up a respectable .926 save percentage in Buffalo. And that was on some atrocious teams. I think he was even the goalie during the tank for McEichel year. So, I mean, that might be something worth exploring. I mean, there's a lot of good options. It just all comes down to the price for me. They brought up Freddie Anderson too.
What are some? I'm trying to see who are the free agent goalies that are going to hit the market. Obviously, the most notable one that comes up is Tuukka Rask, and I don't know what his asking price is going to be, but you got to figure it's not going to be cheap by any means. Let's see what we got going on here.
Yeah, I'm more or less looking at the Linus Ullmark, Peter Mrazek range of goaltender.
Yeah, the top 5 ranked here on Cap Friendly are Rask, Freddie Anderson, Devin Dubnyk, Antti Ranta, and Jim Reimer. So, obviously there are other ones going down the list here, like you have Grubauer. Mrazek was another name that I saw pop up. Jonathan Bernier, Carter Hutton, don't even think about it. Your boy Linus Ullmark, and David Riddick was another one. How do you feel about David Riddick?
My only thing with David Riddick is I think he's going to re-sign with Toronto. I think that's one of those things like where they brought him in as a rental just to see like what they had in him, just like through practices and having a game or two here and there. And I think that he's going to be the 1A, 1B guy with Jack Campbell.
The goalie market's really this year. Just looking at it, like Allmark's the youngest guy here. Every goalie in this is like 34
30 or above.
Yeah. They're all old.
Yeah, older. And there's already rumors that James Reimer is going to sign like a 1-year, $1 million deal to be the backup in Tampa. Yeah. So he's off the board
too. Yeah.
You know, and I mean, honestly, I think Linus Ullmark's the guy. And trade market, and my secondary option would probably be Antti Ranta, even though he can't stay healthy. And trade options, they were looking into Darcy Kemper today. I saw a tweet from that NHL Rumors Daily guy that said that the Penguins were looking into, or have at least checked in on Darcy Kemper. I think that's something that the Coyotes have been working to try and just do before this roster freeze so that they don't have to protect him in expansion, because it would suck for them to have to lose Aiden Hill for nothing to Seattle.
Very true.
But I mean, it's one of those things, like it's looming over my head, you know? And like, I keep saying like, oh, let's just run our 1A, 1B with Jari and a guy they signed in free agency. And that's all fine and well, but Jim Rutherford literally handcuffed the organization by giving him a contract extension with big money in term. You know, I mean, I hate to even say this, but like the contract itself gives me Mikko Koskinen vibes. It's that bad. It's just the only thing that's different is Jari's still somewhat young, and a team like the Oilers might be like, oh, we could use this guy. We think that we can fix him. Yeah. You know, I don't know, man. It's just ridiculous that we're like, I mean, we thought that the Penguins would be doing okay, but I really don't know, especially like with Malkin being injured. I mean, the issue is like there's so much, like obviously Hextall and Burke have done phenomenal since they've gotten here. The Carter trade was fantastic. I'll even go as far as saying the waiver claim of Mark Friedman was great as well. It's just there's so much little things to fix over time with this team because of random boneheaded decisions made by Jim Rutherford.
What do you think Hextall's infatuation with Friedman's all about? Because I feel like, I mean, he puts him on the protected list. I understand there wasn't like many options that were, you know, great per se after Letang and Dumoulin that you were going to protect. But it just seems like for whatever reason, he keeps running back to Friedman. I'm not 100% certain, you know, as to why. I'll give the guy credit. You know, like you said, we texted earlier, Dougie, and you talked about how he's only 25, which I didn't even remember, to be honest with you. But I mean, I don't look at Mark Friedman and think, okay, this is, you know, potentially a top 4 defenseman. You know, I don't even think he's better than POJ, truth be told. I mean, do you feel like Hextall's kind of just Hextall fell in love with him when he was at Philly and he was like, you know what, we have to have this guy? Or what do you think the deal is with that?
I think he drafted him and he really likes him. And I think, you know, like I said to you, like they're protecting him simply because like they're not going to take like a 32 or 33-year-old Chad Ruhwedel off of the Penguins. There's no sense in protecting Chad Ruhwedel. And with Marino and POJ exempt, who else do you have to protect other than
they have Ricola still?
But you're going to try and get rid of that contract, like come hell or high water.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but like with Friedman, honestly, I'd be comfortable with him being the sixth defenseman going into this year. You know, I'd be okay with the third pairing being him and P.O. Joseph.
Yeah.
I honestly think it's going to be him and P.O. Joseph.
So is Patterson or Matheson going then?
I'd love for them to trade Matheson because Pedersen plays really good with Marino. Mm-hmm. And he's a lot of what keeps John Marino stable.
Right.
So, find a way to trade Mike Matheson. I don't know how you do it. I don't know what you get in return, but there has to be somebody out there that, he's desperate enough for defensemen to make that happen.
Well, it might be a ditch effort for somebody like Schultz a few years ago. I mean, he was, like you said, bottom of the toy barrel at some point. I mean, he needed that last ditch effort. I feel like some GM out there will need him at some point, whether it's in the offseason or throughout the season. Whether you release him right now, he gets picked up or trade bait in the future. I think no matter what, his stock will always be moderately high just because of what he's done with the people that he's played with. If there's a hole in a roster somewhere and they have similar players with similar capabilities, put him right next to him, I think he might be able to work some magic.
Yeah, and another, like a team that I think of right away would be the Senators. They have a hole open on the left side after they trade Mike Riley in the summer or in the trade deadline, and a lot of people are saying that they attest a lot of Mike Riley's success in Ottawa and his career rebound on playing with Artem Zup, who is a guy that they signed from the KHL this summer or this last summer. And I think to myself, like, if you put Mike Matheson with Artem Zup, you might get better outreach than you got in Pittsburgh in a second or third pairing role. It just comes down to money because, I mean, the Sens, even though they have a lot of good stuff going on right now, they do have a lot of cap issues, I feel, because, like, Colin White's on a big contract. That Matt Murray contract, as much as I love Matt Murray, that Matt Murray contract is atrocious. That rivals Martin Jones, in all honesty. I don't know. I mean, there's going to be a team that needs them. It reminds me a lot of like the Eric Goodbranson versus Jack Johnson trade bait situation we went through a couple summers ago, where you're just like, all right, we're going to ride this with Eric Goodbranson. But you know that one day you're just going to look at your phone, you're going to see you got traded out west somewhere, Yep. So I think that's where we're at with it. I'd much prefer him to be traded before training camp starts, just so they have that cap flexibility to work with. But real quick, remember how I said we're going to break a trade?
Oh boy, here it is. Fire it
God
up,
almighty, we're going to break a trade.
Give it to me.
The Detroit Red Wings have traded the 52nd overall pick and forward Richard Panik to the New York Islanders for Nick Leddy. Once again, if that's going on, one of these two men can be traded, and they can be traded for value. That's a damn good trade for the Red Wings, man.
Yeah, Leddy, that's been a stable name on the island for a while.
He's so sick. He can quarterback a power play. Still nice with it. Like, really, really good stuff. And again, the type of trade that rebuilding teams should be making. You have like your prospect pool is so loaded to begin with that, like, giving up a second round pick is nothing. So why not get it for a proven commodity that can help your team right now, take you from that last step of your rebuild to playoff contention. Scotty, what are you thinking, man?
Well, it's interesting you just made that statement there. Do you think Detroit's at their last step already? You think they're that close? Because I mean, I don't really see that, to be honest. I feel like they still have another year or two to go. What do you think?
They probably do have another year or two to go. But if they're able to draft Jesper Wallstedt, that goalie prospect, they're pretty damn close.
Yeah.
In my opinion. But, good trade for Detroit. Decent trade for the Islanders because, Richard Panik fits what that team does. Whatever it is that team does, Detroit retained 50% on Richard Panik.
My thing with it is like you said, Dougie, I don't know if you said that or not, if you said this or not, but like if Leddy does have a decent year with the Red Wings, you see them flipping him at the deadline potentially?
They could. Yeah, I think they could. Obviously, like I'm looking at right now, he's on an expiring deal, so he could easily get shipped out for something at the deadline. Especially like if he has a good year, has a resurgent year. I mean, obviously, I don't know. I'm not a coach. I don't know much about the Detroit system, but like one would think he's probably going to be on a pairing with Troy Stetcher.
Mm-hmm.
And that alone is going to help Leddy immensely. Because Troy Stetcher had a coming out party this past calendar year. He's unreal. And I think that he can be a really, really good defenseman for the future for them to build around with guys like Moritz Seider and, Philip Hronek on that right side. So, yeah, I think that they could easily get like a second round pick or more out of Nick Leddy at the trade deadline, especially if they retain salary on him. But yeah, once again, if anybody in the Pittsburgh Penguins front office is listening to this, you have defensemen that need to be traded. Please trade those defensemen. But back to the Penguins, and before we got since we got all thrown off, we're going into a free agency period where I want them to add at least 2 top players. I really want them to look at Thomas Tatar to play with Malkin, like I said, and you still need a top 9 winger option to take that spot on that right wing spot on the Carter line. We're talking about Jared McCann being a 30 goal scorer if he plays with Malkin. I genuinely think Jared McCann's a 25 to 30 goal scorer if he has a more talented winger on that line, or if he's playing with Jeff Carter the entire season. Because let's face it, I mean, Jared McCann, half the year he's playing with like Mark Jankowski, and I think they were force feeding Brandon Tanev up into that third line. So, and not a knock on Brandon Tanev. I mean, he's a monster and he's fast as shit, but not really a goal scorer. Hence why he didn't work with Malkin and Galley whenever they first brought him in. So, yeah, that's what I think they need to do. Like I would like, I don't even know. Like,
how
if they could get
about Brandon Saad potentially.
I was literally just about to say Brandon Saad. My brain farted out. It was between Brandon Saad or Jaden Schwartz.
Mm-hmm. That's another one I saw too. That was kind of interesting.
Yeah, and Schwartz would probably be cheaper than Saad. But like, if you could sign Brandon Saad to like a 4-year deal where he's making like $4.5 million, he takes on that like Patrick Hornquist role of playing the third line, be the net front guy on the power play. I think that's money in the bank right there. And then like Tatar, you have him play here for a year until Sam Poland's ready. Because at some point, maybe Saad moves up with Malkin the year after, and Poland slides into the third line, or vice versa. Poland just goes right onto the second line, or with Sid or whatever. And if they lose that, if they make the right thing and make it where the Kraken have no choice but to take Zach Aston-Reese by protecting Jared McCann, you already have the guy to replace him. Radim Zahorna is going to go in there and play with Bluger and Tanev, and that fourth line is going to destroy people, I think. If not, you still have Freddie Gaudreau. But in my opinion, you sign Freddie Gaudreau to a 2 or 3 year deal where he's making under $1 million, and he's kind of like a your Chad Ruedel of the forward group, where he's like that ace in the hole depth guy that you don't really play much, but when you do play him, he's going to be effective.
If there was to be any pickup, would you rather have, because speed clearly was not an issue last year. We were matching up speed wise with everybody in the NHL. That was not the issue. Now, if these trades are to happen, or these moves, like you're saying, would you rather acquire a winger with more speed on that Carter McCann pairing, or would you want another maybe skillful guy with a little bit more head on his shoulders, opposed to Tanev, like you said, who isn't putting the pucks in the net, except he has that hellacious speed?
Mm-hmm. I think that's a big part of why Scotty and I were advocating for Brandon Saad, because he plays a physical game. He plays with an edge, and you already have enough speed on that line with McCann. And let's be honest, Jeff Carter's still really fast. He has that Jordan Staal, like, lumbering, deceptive speed thing where he carries the puck in the neutral zone, looks kind of slow, and then he just takes off.
Yep.
So I think, if you wanted to get a physical guy and another, I don't know how you do it, but like the perfect winger that we're talking about for this Carter line would be if you could find a way to get Jordan Greenway out of Minnesota. I think that would be phenomenal. He's a good skilled forward, but he also plays with an edge. He plays physical. He's going to hit people. Another one that I thought of would be Miles Wood from New Jersey. That was somebody that I was looking at. A lot of things that were going on in my head had me saying trade Marcus Pettersson for Miles Wood. But now with Graves going to New Jersey, that's probably highly unlikely. I think, you need a physical forward for that line. Now, something else I want to touch on. What would you guys think of committing long-term to Zach Hyman?
Oh,
the only reason I say this, what'd you say?
Long-term and Penguins, that those combos just scare me. It has to be a dead lock, unless Hextall is 100% sold on what they can give to this team, not only in 1 year, 2 years, anything long-term. It always comes back to bite us, whether it's Letang or Gino. I remember Gino, when was his last contract up, or 2 contracts ago, like 2013? Everyone was calling for his out, just because he ran his course in a way, or maybe people believe that he has nothing left to give, and you still have that 4 or 5 extra years, XYZ $1 million left on the table.
Everybody was freaking out about the knee.
Yeah.
Injury. That was really what it was. Here's my thing. It's the closest thing you're going to get to Chris Kunitz, what Chris Kunitz was in his prime. Mm-hmm. And they acquired Chris Kunitz in his age 29, age 30 season. It is right before Zach Hyman's age 29, age 30 season. And I did the math. Chris Kunitz still played here 6 or 7 years before he left. So giving Zach Hyman 7 years and like $5 to $5.5 million does not seem as batshit crazy to me as it would to some people. Play him with Malkin for the year, and then whenever Russ inevitably departs in free agency, move him up with Sid and Jake.
Absolutely, yeah. I feel like that, and also if you negotiate something to that $4 to $5 mil a year range, something that's cap friendly, team friendly, and also 6 years down the line, whenever it could be injury ridden or just a plain old struggle, he'd be willing to keep that lower salary for adding a few guys. I have no idea what the future holds. I thought this past season was going to be an absolute bomb of a season, but it shocked a lot of us. And it's getting those guys that, you really never expected to be good. When like you said, the Jeff Carter thing, that mile-long stare, I think we all had it. I think it was that, kind of trepidation. We were all scared of, is this really the direction the Penguins are going to go? Is this the correct move in this period of time? And, you know, if a long-term deal for someone like Hyman happens, I mean, that's not the end of the world. I just feel that there's a lot of moving parts to be made before you even think about that. And started off, like you said earlier, one defensive piece and 100% goaltending. I mean, that has to be the first check mark off the list.
Yeah. You know, for me, it's a goaltender, a defenseman, given you move guys out, and a forward.
Yeah.
You know, they need one of everything in order to be okay. And I mean, you know,
that's not even enough.
Yeah, honestly, like
at this point,
you know, I'm thinking about it. I'm like, you're asking for a whole hell of a lot out of P.O. Joseph.
Yep.
Like,
yeah,
I don't know, dude.
Marino too. I mean, all these young guys are going to have all this pressure, kind of like what Letang had at the beginning of his career. You got to lean on somebody. If you have an older group of guys around you, or guys with not a lot of experience, like Joseph coming up, you know, you're going to rely on your guys who have been there 2 or 3 years and have maybe made a deep playoff run or two. You need to lean on their coattails a little bit. And that's just that added pressure throughout that 82-game season. It just wears you down.
And in the back of my mind, that's why I kind of want the Penguins to look into Ryan Suter to play with John Marino, because a big part of what helped Chris Letang when he first got up here was he was playing with Sergei Gonchar. And at that point, you know, post 08 Cup run, plus the run he went on with the Capitals, Gonchar's seen it all.
Yeah.
You know, like Ryan Suter's been around the block. I know that there haven't been a lot of deep playoff teams in Minnesota, but like he did it consistently in Nashville. And I mean, I'd give him the Jack Johnson cap hit special. I'd give him $3.25 million for 2 years. Let him play with Marino. Hopefully you get a cup with him and he rides off into the sunset.
Yep.
You know, I'd be perfectly fine with our depth down the left side of the defense being Brian Dumoulin, Ryan Suter, P.O. Joseph.
That's strong.
It is.
And then this also brings up this question. We're thinking about future. How many more years is the window open to get these, not big name guys, but these assets that really are meant for the present and not necessary, or for the future and not necessarily the present, kind of like where Ottawa is, or Buffalo, Anaheim, some of these teams that are constantly moving players left and right?
I don't know, Scotty. Would I be optimistic if I said 2 to 3 years?
Yeah, optimistic would be the right word there. Logan, at this point, like I don't even know what to say about the window. To be honest, I thought the window was closed whenever they lost to Montreal. You know what I mean? And then they come out this year and they win a division title. Then I'm like, okay, maybe we still have a chance. And then we lose in the first round again. So I'm like, at this point, I've given up trying to figure out what the window is or how long it's open. I honestly just think at this point, you just take it year by year. You know, it's at one point at some point they're going to miss the playoffs. And when that happens, okay, it's done, it's over. But until then, you just keep coming back year after year and you see what happens. You know, I think that's the best option going forward, because there's no sense trying to predict, okay, this is when we're finally going to crash and burn. You know what I mean? Like, this is when it's going to happen, because it could have easily been this year and it didn't happen. They end up shocking everybody and winning the division. Everyone was predicting that the Pens were going to miss the playoffs. Even I thought at some point they were going to miss the playoffs this year now, and they end up winning the division title. So, like I said, I don't think there is a window. I think the window is just year by year at this point. You know, it's going to be open. If they make the playoffs again, okay, window's still open. If they miss it next year, all right, it's done. I think that's just what it has to be.
Yeah, and the last thing you want to do is have what happened with the 90s Bulls, where Jerry Krause literally just blew it up saying that he thought it was time, when they easily could have won an NBA championship in the 2000s. You know? And that's where I'm at with it is, you know, I mean, knock on wood, if Sid's brain holds up, he could play another 5 to 7 years. And whether it be a top line talent or doing like some weird Philip Deneau type shit where he's a shutdown third line center, you know, he can still be an incredible player. And he's going to have guys that can play with him. It's just being able to build around him, and I think a couple years down the line, once the cap starts going up and Crosby and Malkin get into their last few years of their careers, and they just keep taking Malkin and Letang keep taking 1-year deals. If a young-ish center, kind of like where Dylan Strome is right now, comes up on the trade market, they will move the moon and the earth for him to come in and play third line center until someone's ready to retire. I think that that's the way to go, and if the wheels fall off the bus magically in 2023 and they fall ass backwards into Matvei Michkov or Connor Bedard, God bless him. That's pretty much how I feel on it. But we really didn't even touch on what we were supposed to touch on. The Brandon Tanev over Jared McCann situation. I just realized that we kind of got all sentimental and let the wheels fall off the bus here for a couple minutes. But, why is everybody obsessed with Brandon Tanev?
I think it's a
little.
Go ahead, Scott.
You go ahead.
I said the same reason they were obsessed with Fleury.
Yeah.
He's got those little moments where you're like, oh, he's really cool. He's a nice guy. Or he's or it's like, yeah, he's hitting a guy and then he's screaming, or something like that. Like he gets really pumped up on the bench and, he'll be yelling in guys' faces and everyone's like, oh, that's really cool. Same way Marc-Andre Fleury would make a flashy glove save and then he'd smile to the referee after he throw the puck at him. It's stuff like that. We get hooked on those little things because, they stand like, oh, he's actually enjoying playing the game. Athletes always look so serious whenever they're playing games. And then here's this guy who just, either on just completely happy about what he's doing. And then you have Brandon Tanev, who's, just goes full psycho, just sees red. I feel like that's what fans love to see. And honestly, it's what GMs love to see too. They love to see, certain players do those things that just, just attracts them, I guess. I don't know what the deal is, but, maybe if Jared McCann had a better goal celebration, maybe he'd stick around. I don't know. But either way, for whatever reason, he doesn't have something. He's lacking something that Brandon Tanev possesses in the eyes of Ron Hextall. And I think that's what it just comes down to in the end, is Ron Hextall sees something in Tanev that he doesn't see in McCann.
And it's probably showing up in the playoffs is what he sees.
That's another thing that I was thinking about too.
Honestly, and that's what sucks.
Yeah. He's not a player.
That and a lot of the Tanev love, I feel like, comes from just the fans. I feel like Pittsburgh, we're very sentimental people. We like to hold on to the past. And like Fleury, another name that comes up is Max Talbot, 100%. I mean, they play a similar game. And you think about whenever Max left to go to Philly, everyone's like, oh my gosh, what a traitor, this, that, and the other. But in hindsight, if you think about it, it wasn't the end of the world that we got rid of him. Same thing as Tanev. I mean, he's definitely replaceable. There are other guys like him. Now, necessarily as tenacious and, gritty as he is, maybe not. Same as Max Talbot back in the day, but it was definitely something that you can move on from. And I think it is just that personality that kind of takes over the eyes of some fans or even some people in the top offices. They like that personality hanging around the locker room or the city, be a face for a franchise, whether it's just a social media face or an ability face.
And building off what you said, Logan, Max Talbot gets way too much crap for signing that deal with Philly. He gets way too much.
Way too much.
If you think about it, he had one shot at signing a big contract in his life, and you thought he was going to pass that up just to stick around in Pittsburgh? No chance. Oh, you got to get your money worth.
Yeah. Exactly. He won the cup. He scored the 2 goals. He doesn't need anything else. Exactly.
I did my job, and now I got a shot at making $35 million. This is going to set me for life. You better believe I'm signing that contract.
I would have been pissed at him if he didn't. Exactly.
So he gets way too much crap for that, honestly. I remember he did an interview with Phil Bourque, and Bourque was giving him a hard time about signing Philly. It's like, dude, let it go. It's over.
Exactly.
How many players?
And he's French Canadian, so he'll take a penny more if he has to.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, 100%.
Yeah, back to McCann though. You know, it sucks that they might potentially lose Jared McCann because I just looked in my DMs on Twitter. Someone sent me a, you know, those like analytics heat maps.
Mm-hmm.
You know who Jared McCann's heat map is most comparable to? Guess young superstars in the league.
Like today, like right now?
Right now.
Mitch Marner.
I'm going to go like Huberto or something on the Panthers.
Elias Pettersson.
Ooh. Wow.
And we're going to give that away for free.
Wow.
We're going to give that away for free.
Well, Pettersson had a hot start last year. He got hurt early on, didn't he?
Yeah, he got hurt early on and it kind of just lingered throughout the year. But like, dude, like, how do you give that away?
Here's another question I want to ask you, Dougie, real quick. Do you think there's any, like, what would the Penguins have to give Seattle in order to get them to take like a Zach Aston Reese or somebody like that? What do you think they'd have to give up?
In my opinion, I think that they value Aston Reese enough that you only have to give him like a second or a third. You know, very smart, analytics savvy front office in Seattle being led by Ron Hextall, or by Ron Francis. Oh my God. I mean, Zach Aston Reese is literally the best defensive forward in hockey. If you did the Selke on defensive metrics alone, Zach Aston Reese would have won the Selke. So I don't think it's going to take a lot. It's just a matter of, you know, making sure you don't get hosed. Because just like we said, we're at a point right now where we really can't be giving up draft picks. Like especially for crap like this, you know, which makes me hope that they make the right decision and protect Tanev. I mean, I'd even go as far as saying if they exposed Kapanen over McCann, the Kraken would probably still end up taking Zach Aston Reese. You know, because with Kapanen, he's just a very one-dimensional shooter who got a lot of his goals on just very opportunistic rush attempts. You know,
a lot of goals in the breakaway this year.
Yep. Yeah, a lot of breakaway goals, a lot of goals in transition. You know, I mean, he's one of those guys, like, he reminds you a lot of Phil Kessel, where he's just very one-dimensional. He's not really defensively sound. I don't know where the whole Maple Leafs putting him on the penalty kill thing came from, but like, that ain't it. You know? And I mean, I love Cappy as a player. I'm not gonna say like bad stuff about him, but like, when it comes down to it, you probably protect him over Jared McCann. You know? I just think that is just straight up fact. And the big thing with that is, like, you know, I don't really think you're losing much if you lose Kapanen. You're losing way more losing Jared McCann, in my eyes. Scotty, what do you think?
I'm not sure. I honestly feel the opposite, though. I feel like Kapanen has at least been a little bit more consistent than McCann in the playoffs. That's the big X factor for me, is that McCann does not have that, you know, that standout playoff performance. Not that Kapanen necessarily has it either, but compared to McCann, it's not even close. So I think that's what separates it for me between those two.
I agree. You know, I can agree. And it's not even just showing up in the playoffs in Pittsburgh. He had some massive playoff moments for the Maple Leafs during his tenure there.
Yeah, an overtime winner against Washington, didn't he?
Yeah, he had that OT winner against Washington. He had that OT winner against Columbus in the bubble. You know, like there's so much that he's done already in the playoffs that makes it seem like he's an asset, you know? And I mean, I know they just signed him to an extension, but again, I also don't see the infatuation with Teddy Bluger. You know? And it's another thing of, you know, there's a big thing in the city of Pittsburgh. They love their fourth line grinders. They love their backup quarterbacks. They love their backup goalies. You know, they love all those guys that just play those roles, you know. Granted, they don't really like the Steelers' backup quarterback right now in Mason Rudolph, but hey, it's pretty much been fact for years that they all love backup quarterbacks. I mean, I'm pretty sure I have a Dennis Dixon jersey in my basement, for God's sake.
That's a name.
Yeah, it's a name and a half. It's a name and a half. But anything else you guys want to touch on? Like, what else are you guys thinking? Like, anything that's on your mind?
I mean, what do we – I guess one thing we should probably get into just a little bit is the Parise and Suter buyouts, I guess, wouldn't be a bad thing to get into. You know what I mean?
That went completely over my head, as well as Keith Yandel.
And Keith Yandel, too. Yeah, he's another one where it's like, you know, I had Keith Yandel potentially getting taken by Seattle in the expansion draft. Yeah. That's out the window now. Thanks, Florida. But, I mean, how crazy is that? I mean, we all remember how insane it was whenever they made that signing back on the 4th of July almost 10 years ago. It was honestly like the day that broke them, and they didn't even know it yet. You know what I mean? Like those two contracts are going to be hanging over their heads for quite some time. You know, it really just puts things in perspective. Like, kind of, I don't want to say it was an era wasted, but it kind of was in a sense. You know what I mean? Because now you think about it, you're going to have all that dead cap on your books for at least for the next 6 years. It might be longer than that. I'm not 100% certain, but
yeah, it's like 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
And, you know, I wouldn't even say it's an era wasted. It's an era that probably shouldn't have even happened.
Elaborate.
I mean, I know that you don't get free agents to sign in Minnesota a whole hell of a lot. And it was lucky they got a draw there because of dad, Parise's dad playing for the North Stars. But like, honestly, man, like you could have committed $15 million in like however many years of term that was to a lot of different stuff back in 2011. You could have gotten a lot of better players over the next couple of off seasons, you know? And who's to say, like, they could have drafted a lot more top end talent through the draft and had a lot higher draft picks than they did without Parise and Suter. You know, like, I mean, you got to think they could have had some really nice centers, especially like you go like McDavid draft, Matthews draft, got drafts like that later in the 2010s where they could have been a ping pong ball away from being an absolute unit of a team right now with Fiala and Carell.
How do you think Billy G's going to steer the ship over there? I think he's doing great so far.
I think that man is a graduate of the Jim Rutherford School of Abstract General Managing, and he's going to run that thing into the ground.
You think?
Dude, interesting. I mean, you got to think of it this way. Like, yeah, they might be able to get Jack Eichel with this cap space they created, but are they going to be able to keep him, Fiala, and Kaprizov long term? I mean, they're already struggling with Kaprizov.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they keep giving him this 8-year term whenever he wants like 4 or 5 years so that he can go get a big payday. You know, that's the thing that they need to respect is like he stayed over in the KHL so long that if you lock him up to 8 years, he's committing his entire career to the Minnesota Wild. And I mean, as much as I love watching the Wild play, that's not a good move.
No.
You know, I mean, right now your number one center is Joel Eriksson Ek, who, just like Mikko Koivu, needs help around him. I mean, he should realistically be the third line center of that team. You know, and I think a big reason why they signed that inflated cap hit, obviously it is a great contract for what he brings to the table. And when the cap inflates by the end of that deal, that's going to be the going rate for a third line center. You know, but you're going to have Marco Rossi for the next 3 years making under $1 million, and that's going to be your second line center. And then you have maybe a Jack Eichel, maybe a Sam Reinhart, maybe Sean Monahan centering your first line. And, you know, you might be cooking with oil. But, like, really, they have 3 years to win a Stanley Cup, or this whole thing is going to hell in a handbasket.
Yep.
You know, and with Keith Yandel, it's pretty damn obvious he's going to sign with the Bruins, right?
Most likely, yeah.
I feel
Probably
like that's a given.
too.
Yeah, like $1 million.
Yeah, at most. That's pushing it.
Yeah, I mean, because no disrespect to Keith Yandel, but like doesn't really have it much anymore. You know,
The man,
he's gonna
that's it.
yeah, he is the Iron Man streak going for him. You know, he's going to play a third pairing role in Boston most likely, and he's going to be a really good power play quarterback and replace Torrey Krug finally on the power play.
Yep.
You know, Parise is going to go to the Islanders because Lou's been trying to get him for like 4 or 5 years. And Ryan Suter is going to be that rare buyout where he's still going to sign a rather big ticket, and there's going to be a bidding war for him day one of free agency.
Yep.
You know. But it's also interesting that guys are just straight up getting bought out because they refused to waive their no movement clause for Seattle. I feel like GMs learned a lesson a couple years ago after Kevin Bieksa refused to waive his no move, and the Ducks ended up losing Shea Theodore because of it. You know, I mean, the move at the time would have probably been to buy out Kevin Bieksa because I don't even think he played that next season. I think he ended up retiring anyway, or ended up not being able to play. So the Ducks screwed themselves out of a literal franchise defenseman to go alongside their other franchise defenseman. And the whole thing just was a mess. You know, but unfortunately, I don't think the Penguins learned any lessons. Jared McCann is probably going to be the crown jewel of that expansion draft. You know, he's going to be that Jonathan Marchessault type figure, and we are all going to hate it.
I was gonna say we already did the Fleury thing, Marchessault. I mean, we're just feeding these new teams talent.
Yeah, and I mean,
and faces of the franchise.
So let's talk about that. Fleury. You think he's going to get traded to Chicago?
I just read that. That's crazy. And I do. I think so. Why the hell would Gallant, year after year, not place his trust in the Fleury? Why is that such a last-minute decision or a surprise to so many people in the playoffs? Even whenever he plays well, a game after he plays well, and he might look a little bit fatigued. I know everyone blamed his blunder behind the net, onto him being tired, this, that, and the other. But it's just a simple bad bounce. I mean, Fleury, if you look at his career in general, how many of these series or games are fully on him? As a Penguins fan, I never remembered a goalie outcry as bad as Jari this past playoffs. I mean, that swept everything. That masked any bad performance a defenseman or a forward had. I remember people crying out after a Philly series, and geez, what was that, 2013-14 now, crying out, Fleury, leave. But I think that, a coach has to stick with his guns with him because he does have a lot to offer. And I feel like if you're that bouncy, switching out goalies, middle of the playoffs, you really uncalled for, unannounced, that makes the guys ahead of you really shaky. You know, you don't know what the coach is doing. He's a loose cannon. One wrong move, you could end up like Fleury. Someone could replace you that easily. They just need to find someone who can place trust into him. Because clearly it's not us or Vegas.
No, you know, and my big thing is like, I don't even think that there will be trust in him in Vegas or in Chicago, because he's going to be running a 1A, 1B with Kevin Lankinen.
Yep.
Who was pretty damn good this season. I'm pretty sure he was high up in Calder voting for his rookie season. But honestly, man, if the Blackhawks are going all in, I think that's the move you make.
Or, I mean, you still look at it. Fleury's one of the best goaltenders in the league. Still. I mean, that's not debatable at all.
Vezina trophy.
Yeah.
He just won a Vezina trophy.
Yeah. It's unbelievable.
I just won a Vezina trophy, and we're treating him like the redheaded stepchild. It's ridiculous.
I mean, the Penguins did it too, and it was so sad whenever that happened. I didn't know why. I didn't understand it. Half the people did, half didn't. It's kind of like an election. I mean, half are going to like the decision, half won't. It turned out to not bite us in the ass, thankfully, because Murray was, you know, that guy for a few years, but he also ran his course. I don't think Fleury necessarily ran his full course with the Penguins. I just think we cut his leash off maybe a year or two sooner than we should have back in, you know, the talks of trade in 2014 and so on. So I think that diminished his confidence, even though he kept that smile and, you know, happy persona around the room, which ultimately led to 2 very successful Stanley Cup seasons.
You know, and the big thing with moving Fleury out was the cap. I mean, moving out that cap had allowed them to keep both Brian Dumoulin and Justin Schultz, you know, and that allowed them to at least be in the running to run it back going into 2018. Go for the three-peat and bring in, you know, Derek Brassard.
Yeah.
I mean, that didn't work, but still. You know, if there were 2 things I could do in hindsight from that 3-year run, I would move Murray after the back-to-back cups for the moon and the earth. And I would probably I would trade for JG Pageau instead of Derek Brassard. You know? Because what?
I said, if there was a time machine, I mean, that would be perfect in retrospect. That would have made more sense coming out of it. But I still think, you know, the gamble game still has to be played. And I don't think Brassard landed us in a terrible spot by any means, which was good.
No. It's just he had a bad attitude. But, like, at the end of the day, still got a shared McCann.
Yep.
You know, I don't know, boys, but you know, the expansion draft is this Wednesday, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so tune into that, see what happens. Protection lists, I think, come out tomorrow. So we're gonna know what's going on tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow at 5, right?
Tomorrow at 5. So that's gonna be a time. It's gonna be a time to be alive.
'Tis the season, baby.
Dude, honestly though, like crazy.
It's exciting. It is crazy. It's exciting.
It really is, you know.
Because I have no idea what the hell is going to happen. We could say whatever we want. Who knows? I mean, anything could happen. Like the Phil thing a few years ago. You know, granted it wasn't an expansion, but I mean that blew our socks off. Just those blindsided hits that you never know what can happen any given second of that day.
Yeah, I mean Vladimir Tarasenko.
Yeah, what's up with that? That's a move.
That could be.
I still think he has some in the tank.
It's just like if he's able to stay healthy, dude.
Yeah.
My God. Yeah, my God, if he's able to stay healthy. All right, guys. Anything else you want to touch on?
We're all good, man.
Yes,
cool.
I have one. I just want to ask you. It's not a discussion point, but Pierre Maguire. We were talking about him. Is he the only guy who was with Versus/NBC Sportsnet from its creation until its demise? Because I think he was.
Eddie Olczyk was too, I think. I could be wrong.
No, he was still coaching in Pittsburgh, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah, Pierre was – I think Pierre was there the whole time, right?
I think he was the only one.
Yeah. Wow. So he was the captain of the ship and he went down with it. That is crazy.
And I just think it's hilarious that he ended up being the one who sold out and got a GM job out of it.
I
Got
know.
like a hockey ops job out of it.
Awesome. Yeah. I find that just absolutely hilarious. So either that shows Ottawa's desperate or Ottawa's like, hey, he's gained this 18 years of current game knowledge every breathing second of the day. Maybe he could spew a little bit here. I don't know, but I find that fascinating.
It's something to behold.
Yes, needless to say.
For damn sure, because
that's a stat that I never would have bet $1 on.
The content that could just come out of this man being being in charge of anything on a hockey team is it is horrifying, and it's pretty damn fun to witness when it's not your team.
Yes.
It's not even a team you have any like emotional connection to at all. Like
zero.
The Senators are just the Senators,
Yeah.
So, all right, guys. This has been another episode of Forechecking TV. Be sure to like and subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on Spotify, and follow us on Apple Podcasts. All right, guys. Thank you. Have a good night. See you later.